Welcome back to Collaboration Conversations. I am your co host today, Regina Partain Bergman, and my co host normally for this show is unable to be with us at this time. And so we have a wonderful guest co host today. So I'd like to introduce you to my guest co host, Brendan McCauley. And Brendan has a goal that I think inspires me. Hopefully, it will inspire you as well, but it really makes me want to stretch myself further. So, let me tell you his goal. It's to help 50,000 speakers and coaches launch a 5-day challenge by 2025. That is an enormous goal, folks. And I want you to meet this young man and see all the good he's doing in the world and how he's growing his business and how he uses collaboration in the growth of his business. So, welcome, Brendan. How are you doing today?
Miss Regina, I'm outstanding. Thank you so much for now being on this platform with you. And we just did another interview, and then yesterday I interviewed you. So we're just, collaboration at its finest, and it's a privilege to be here.
Absolutely. Brendan, I said your name wrong. Brendan, would you share with us a bit about your journey, what's brought you to this place, who you serve, and why it's important to you to serve them?
Yeah, 100%. And I appreciate the opportunity to do so. So long story short, struggled with weight when I was a kid. And basically, as I began to transform physically, I really started to master myself mentally. And through that, there was a lot of principles and things that I had learned along that journey that played into my role of entrepreneurship. So just to kind of give you an idea, as I went through Weight Watchers, I think you're familiar with it, as I'm
I
sure
am.
the viewers. So with Weight Watchers, so my mom had brought me to that. And what I loved was that it was a group of individuals that were all headed towards one very specific outcome, right? So there was accountability, there was weekly check-ins, there was one very desired result. And what I noticed was that those that all were headed in the same direction and were on that same path and supported each other tended to get the best results. So from that perspective, I equate that totally to this game of entrepreneurship and collaboration, that when you surround yourself by other individuals that are headed towards one very specific area, albeit health, wealth, relationships, maybe all three at the same time, when you're collaborating with these other, unique individuals, whether it's somebody that could be a close friend, it could be a significant other, it could be a JV partner, whatever that collaboration is going to look like. I think when you set very specific intentions, you start heading there, it's so much easier to achieve that desired result. So yes. I combined those two, and that was something that I had learned very early on in life. And then as I continued to progress through that, came across another program that was a health and fitness program called P90X. I'm sure a lot of people have probably seen it, late night infomercial at 2 a.m. It's like, if you want to get a 24 pack, come get this. So that was kind of like, that was my next level of commitment, right? So I think as entrepreneurs, especially as we get into these collaborations, we start off maybe not necessarily knowing what we're doing, and then you get a little bit better and a little bit better, and then you're like, okay, I've got this skill set beneath me, like I'm ready to go to this level, or maybe, hey, I've collaborated with a few people, but I want like even bigger collaborations. Like I want to work with the guys that are on stage, and I want to hang around those kind of individuals. So this was, I think, kind of a good precursor for me as getting saying like, hey, I'm going to start here, but I'm going to go here. And so the reason I bring that up is that was really my first taste of entrepreneurship, where I had the opportunity to not only transform my life physically and mentally, but they also had a first network marketing opportunity where it was my first taste of entrepreneurship, for lack of better words. So I loved that. I dove straight into it, and I was on the 40-40-40 plan for a while. That's pretty much how my family was. So I was in the corporate healthcare. I got my undergrad. I got my graduate degree. And what I had realized was, over that time, as I really got into this coaching, speaking, training kind of realm, I loved it. Like, just personally, that's where I would shine as an entrepreneur. But I think I was at that spot where a lot of people are, where you're doing something that pays the bills, and then you have this dream that you want to go after. And I think for a while you're trying to figure out, okay, well, how do I bridge that gap? Like, what does that look like? How do I make that jump and make that leap? And I will say a lot of it came from collaborative efforts that I had made. And so to give you an idea, so I went through, I get like all these certifications, and I lay them all out on my bed. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. But I had no idea how to turn this into a business. All I knew was all this personal development, like, okay, well, you got to be resourceful and, you got to leverage other people's audiences and, leverage your assets. So I'm like, all right, what assets do I have? Who can I talk to? What does that look like? And one of the gentlemen who was the CEO of one of the certification things that I had gotten, we ended up getting like really close. And I talked to him like, dude, I love what you guys are about. I love the environment. I love the energy. And I wanted to create this collaboration with him where I'd be able to get in there and then fully make this transition out of something I had been doing for the past 10 years and into a world that I knew would just take me to that next level where I could just really thrive and be in this positive energy and this positive mindset. And just I'm like, okay, that's the target. I just got to figure out how I do it. So with the backing of the wife, or well, soon to be wife, at the time, girlfriend, I was like, babe, can I cash in my 401k and can I chase my dreams? And she said, Brendan, as long as you can pay the bill. And I said, babe, for 3 months, I know for a fact I can. And after that, we'll figure it out. We'll make it happen. And she's like, all right, do it. And so I walked in and I said, okay, guys, I'm putting in my 90 days. I appreciate it, but we're going to make this happen. And it's so funny too. When you start collaborating with the right people, when you've got the right people in your corner and the ones that are really going to, sometimes it's collaborative from a business standpoint. Sometimes I think it's collaboration from just a mindset. Hey, can I just help like positively lighten up your day and have your back? There's been so many times when I've been able to like make a phone call and be like, dude, I'm getting my ass kicked right now. Like I need you, like just get me in the right headspace, get me just mentally on track. Because when you start taking a beating and you don't know where to turn, and especially if you're like solopreneur, that can be really scary, sometimes like dark path to try and walk down. And if your spouse or significant other, like if they're not in that same realm, a lot of times you guys don't speak that same language.
Right.
So for you to collaboratively be able to work with somebody that can be like, and I've had a number of friends that'll be like, look, I've been there. I get where you're at. This is what it looks like when you get on the other side of the fence, or, the grass is greener over here. And that really helped tremendously, like along that journey to make sometimes those really tough decisions. And so thankfully, through that collaboration, and I will say this was actually part of a strategy that I've not only utilized then, but I've utilized moving forward. What I found is that if there's certain individuals that you want to collaborate with and you want to get really close with, I've always been strategic and not necessarily going directly after potentially that one person, but I always wanted to collaborate with the people that they were closest to. Because I think from that perspective, like if you just go, like just for example, so if we're in high school and, and you're a guy and you want to date like the hottest girl in school, well, most of the times, you're like, if that girl goes, hey, she'll talk to her friends. And if the friends all say that he's like a weird guy or he's a creep, your chances, or even if it's a, a or whatever,
you're shut down.
To are probably slim to none.
Yeah.
Right. But if you make friends, if you collaborate, like if, let's just say a guy like Grant Cardone who plays at a level up here, or whoever that's going to be in your business, in your health,
right?
Whatever, if you're able to collaborate with the other individuals that they know, like, and trust, or if you're best friends with their wives or, whatever,
right?
All of a sudden your ability, I think, to collaborate and to move forward and to build those relationships can just explode.
Absolutely. So because you come in as that trusted person then to that level from that other person.
Right. Because if someone said, hey, should I work with Regina? I'd be like, oh my God, she's phenomenal. Yes, you have to talk to her, have a conversation. This is what she can do. That I think that warm lead and that ability to pull somebody in and share, hey, you have to talk to this person. That right there, that warm handoff can make all the difference in the world. And that was enough to help me jump from something that I had felt stuck in to all of a sudden got me brought into this. And then that's kind of where the whole entrepreneurial journey over the past 7 years had really started.
Right. You mentioned probably close to a half a dozen different ways to collaborate in that. And I want to come back and talk about some of those.
Sure.
Because they are phenomenal. One thing you talked about was accountability. So let's tackle that one first. And how having a collaborative accountability partner, or someone who's going to hold your feet to the fire, and vice versa. And by the way, I tell my coaching clients to put on their asbestos shoes because I'm going to hold their feet to the fire.
I like it.
But I also have to put on my own asbestos shoes because they hold my feet to the fire, right? But yeah, let's talk about that accountability piece and how in collaborations, how important that is.
Yeah, and I'd say there's been two different forms of that I think since having implemented has made a tremendous difference, even just in the mental game, but just making sure that like you hold yourself accountable. So the first one I had as I was making this transition, just kind of going through this process, was an actual accountability partner, and I had one when I first had gotten into like network marketing like a number of years ago. And it was great because you'd have that person where you had certain targets, certain goals, things like you wanted to hit. And when you can call them up and say, hey, how are you doing? Hey, I've got this going on. Awesome. And it winds up almost becoming sort of like a personal cheerleader, as well as, being able to just really to share and have that communication with somebody that speaks the same language that you do. And you're both aiming towards that certain thing. So after that first one I had, and hearing so many people that are successful have the same thing, I was looking for a new one. And funny enough, and still it's the same person up to this day, but I put this random post in Facebook, and I don't remember exactly what group we're in. It probably had thousands of people. And I said, hey, I'm a coach who's, on my journey, blah, blah, blah. I'm looking for someone that is, and I just kind of listed off these traits. This is the kind of accountability partner I want. Would you be interested? And
Right.
the first woman that responded on there, Regina, sometimes like you look at somebody and just like, like it's just going to be a really good fit.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
She's like, I'm looking for one too. I would love to connect. I think the first call we had was about 4 hours.
Oh my goodness.
4 hours. Now, this was probably maybe over 4 years ago, give or take, maybe 5.
Yeah.
And so we talked literally for 4 hours. Up until maybe recently, we almost had talked every single day for an hour on the phone. Now, here's the funniest part. I've never met her in person.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've never met her in person. It's always just been like, hey, let's hop on the phone. This is what you're doing. This is what I'm doing. And then I think just between that collective energy, as somebody's got some momentum, that all of a sudden feeds this one, and then this one feeds the next one. And before you know it, like you're both you're rotating, and then some ideas, and then you start sharing them. And then the collaborative effort between, hey, I tried this, it didn't work. Oh, have you tried this? And it winds up becoming the sounding board that just goes back and forth, which was beautiful. And even to this day, we're very much on like similar paths where we've a similar business model, similar styles, energy, personality, and even it may start off as that, but then you start building out the referrals and the pieces that come from that. And hey, you got to talk to this person, you got to talk to that person,
right?
And I think between like the knowledge you gain, the trust, and everything else that comes with it, it's tremendously powerful. So that was how I had started for a while. And then I heard another concept that was similar but slightly different, and they called it a board of directors. And essentially, it's exactly kind of like what it sounds like. But the idea is that you have your own sounding board. So it's not necessarily a mastermind. It's not like a single accountability partner, but it's a group of individuals that you trust. It could be maybe like it's myself and 2 others. But the way that it works is that you meet pretty much like once a week. And the idea is it's sort of like a check-in. And it's, it's like, so you as the CEO, the owner of your life, of your business, of your relationships, you get to come to the table and say, hey guys, like, this is what we're looking to do the same way a business would. Right. And you provide it to the board. And then the idea is for the board to come in and to objectively look at this from a 30,000 foot view and say, okay, well, like this is going good, but what about this? But what about this? So you get like immediate feedback and support or potential direction shift in a very short period of time.
That's awesome.
And because it's us 3 and we do this every single Tuesday morning without fail at 8 a.m., each one of us get to throw something out there. And then plus you share a little bit of knowledge, things you've learned. So it's this really fast, immediate feedback. And the relationships, and it's funny because we all met at the same event almost about a year plus ago. And since then, we've just hopped on, and every single Tuesday we've done this. Each one of us have seen significant growth in our business. I think as well as just overall happiness and motivation and support. So between having like the one person that's like your go-to, hey, I need help, let's talk this out, to more of a structured, okay, bam, I'm keeping myself accountable. Between those two, it's been tremendously helpful.
That is phenomenal. I really like that approach. That's, you made me think of when in my younger days, when I was assistant manager of a credit union years ago. I was in my 20s, and I was I can remember driving down the road thinking, it's lonely at the top. I don't have anybody to talk to
Mhm.
that can relate to what I'm experiencing. I didn't have that network. I didn't have those collaborative relationships. And your boss, that that's not the person you want to take it to, the manager, and you can't take it to your staff. And a lot of times your spouse doesn't understand, what you're going through and things, or they may not have the same experiences to be able to help you. And so having that board of directors, I really like that idea. I love the accountability partner. I love taking that to the next level.
Well, and so if I can touch on that, and we were just talking about this earlier, the book I'm reading right now, Personality Isn't Permanent, in there, because it just talks about, like who you are and just how do you get to that next level and how do you shift and transform and mindset. And he was going over this example where there's this group of maybe 4 or 5 individuals, all easily made about 100 million a year. And it's funny because when they all initially connected about 10 years prior, they knew the direction that they wanted to get to. So now fast forward 10 years and they're hitting those
they're
really
there.
solid, on a consistent basis year after year.
Yeah.
They use what they call the one sheet. So from a collaborative effort, all of them would, connect, whatever is similar to like our board of directors kind of concept. And I thought this was cool. And actually, I want to start implementing this. In that one sheet, it goes over all the key metrics in each area of their life. So health, wealth, relationship, and then it goes through and starts breaking down each of those pieces. So it's almost like you have a scoreboard for yourself of, hey guys, here's what I promise I'll be at. And then when you re-meet to like go over all these numbers, all right, on a 1 to 10, here's how I'm feeling in my relationships with my wife. Here's my body fat percent. Here's how much my numbers have increased in my business. Here's how many new leads we had. And because they're so intentional and direct with what it is, you're holding yourself basically to that new standard. And whatever we focus on, is where that energy is going to flow. By doing that, because they were consistent and they constantly collaborated with each other to just bring about new ideas, new thoughts, new energy, new concepts. They said that was like one of the major keys to their success, having started from, like down here to all of a sudden up here over that overnight success journey that we see a lot of people have.
Right. Wow.
So it's
powerful.
Really cool.
Again, very powerful. I'm going to have to pick up that book.
It's a good book. It's definitely worth a read.
So let's spin this just slightly, because I think a lot of what we've been talking about comes into this next one, but that was masterminds. You mentioned masterminds in your initial conversations. So talk to us about masterminds in terms of collaboration.
So one of the initial, I remember this probably 6 months ago. And are you familiar with the platform Clubhouse, the audio platform?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm normally in bed by 8, up by 4, but for some reason on a Friday, I just happen to be on Clubhouse and I'm skimming through. And there was a gentleman that was hosting. He's got a huge following at like 9 p.m. at night every Friday. And he has this gentleman come on. And a lot of what this gentleman was talking about was things that I wanted to do in my business. So I was thinking from like a strategic perspective, like I would love to talk with this guy and see like what could that potentially turn into. So long story short, I listened to him and I wound up reaching out to him through Instagram or something to that extent. And fast forward, here's one of the things I've learned, especially from like the mastermind perspective. Sometimes we have to be willing to invest into somebody before they'll turn around and they'll invest back into us.
Yes. Yes.
And because I was very much aligned with who this gentleman was and, he, being an influencer that ran in certain circles, and I loved the mission he was on, sometimes you just have to pull out your credit card and say, yes, I'm going to invest in what you're doing because I believe in that without even that necessary thought of return. And here's the reason why I bring that up. Because I had connected with this one gentleman and I collaborated with him, he then brought me and introduced me to another gentleman that they're working side by side from a partner's perspective. So the one guy that I initially met, he had his own personal mastermind that I was able to go to and bring my stepson to, which forever transformed his life and just completely opened his eyes. And then this other gentleman that he brought me to more of like a personalized mastermind think tank kind of style, which then built all these other relationships up. So from those two mastermind think tank, kind of ideas, I think A, being able to make those initial connections to collaborate, but then B, seeing how can I get around other mastermind individual style like groups where they're going to be willing to bring me in and say, hey, I want you to be a part of this. I want you to share your knowledge, your expertise. It builds up your relationships, hands down. I think, you're now communicating at a different level because of who you wind up surrounding yourself with, assuming that these are the individuals that you want to associate with. And the fact that you can go there and not only share certain pieces that can totally change the way that other people think, but what you wind up hearing from other people with different years of experience, of knowledge, of
Yeah.
their ups, their downs,
Right.
what you can walk away from that. Like if you really just truly take time to soak that in, reflect on it, and say, okay, well, based on that and based on what I've gone through, like here's the direction I want to head. I think it opens up your mind to completely different things. And I don't remember who said it, but like once the brain expands, it can't contract down to like its original size. So
Right.
you do all these things, and hands down, like I don't have like one consistent mastermind right now that I'm a part of, but that is something I am actively seeking though.
Awesome. Fantastic. Yeah, I'm a firm believer in masterminds. I participated in 2 year-long masterminds fairly
Mm,
close to one another. Um, one was, I guess, in 2015, and the other one started in 2016. The first one was Russell Brunson's.
okay.
And
Nice.
there's an expression about you never want to be the smartest person in the room.
Right.
And that was an educational experience for me, to be sure, to be in that room. And I
Hmm.
mean, there were people of all ages in there, from 20-year-olds to myself, I guess I should say. And but it was phenomenal to be in there and be a part of that. And I learned so much and gained so much from it. That was a year-long program. The next one that I did was with Jay Fazette of
Hmm.
JVology. I don't know if you know
Yeah,
Jay or
I know
not, but
geology.
yeah. So Jay, I did a year-long program with Jay in JVology. Um, they're incredible. And then I've run some myself, and
Mhm.
but the value of a mastermind, and I have a mastermind that's ongoing now. Um, that's been going for a couple of years anyway. And then I have another group that's like similar to a mastermind. It's not quite the same thing. Um, but yeah, I'm a firm believer in masterminds.
Well, as far so now that I'm thinking about it, because I just did like 4 events sort of back to back, and one of those happened to be a mastermind with a woman who started off as my client and then actually became my coach in
There
a
you go.
turn of events.
Yeah,
But yeah, she had just a phenomenal background and just amazing at what she did. And she hasn't hosted a mastermind since COVID, because a lot of she'd always do these like really close, intimate, personal kind of deals. And she's like, hey, I'm going to run one. It's going to be up in Philadelphia. And I was like, cool, let's just throw another. Like I was back to back, Regina. It was like one event, then the next event, then all of a sudden, like the next day, I'd have to go like straight in the airport and take off. But when you invest in your time and yourself, and just saying, okay, I'm willing to go there and just be present, and just keep this energy and this momentum going. Some of the takeaways and the feedback that I got, even potential business that had come from that, was awesome. And so
yeah,
it's just like you never know what you're going to get. But I think as long as you go in with this open mindset
yeah,
of, all right, I'm just going to show up, I'm going to be present, and for me, I think 80% is really just being there in the room, and then you just kind of let the rest happen, and just be
yeah,
yourself and come from a giving, serving kind of perspective. So like all it takes sometimes is just like one
yeah,
thing that can just change your world, that can change your life. And then to actually finally meet her in person, having now known her for like 8 months prior,
right.
it's always cool just to kind of actually go up and embrace her. And she
Yeah,
always told me, she's like, Brendan, I'm like really small, I'm a tiny lady, and you can't tell on Zoom. And when I went to go hug her, she's like up to here on me. I'm like, oh, you're adorable, come here. But yeah, like that was really powerful. It was a good time too.
yeah, yeah. Going from this, I want to take another one that you mentioned in your opening comments, and that is joint ventures. And we just mentioned Jay Fazette and JVology.
Mhm.
So how has participating in joint ventures and the type of collaborations that happen there, can you talk a little bit about that level of collaboration and how that's benefited your business?
Yeah, so and I think a prime example is the woman I was just talking about. So she we had connected through one of the social media channels, and the initial conversation was, hey, you have a beautiful audience, and I said, well, this is what I can do, and I can help you to leverage online stages and so on and so forth. And then since then, I think a lot of times, and sometimes I've got, another strategic partnership that's been like a 3-year in the process. So a lot of times these don't just happen right out of the gate. And you have to
Yeah.
build that know, like, and trust factor. And they have to see, like, okay, is this a person that has high integrity? Are they going to show up when they say they are going to? Like, you're almost creating like an actual partnership in your business.
Yeah.
And I think to certain levels, everyone kind of has, certain goals and objectives. But I probably have, two women that I get along with tremendously well. And you collaborate in different forms and fashions. And a lot of times, because, if you're the kind of person that likes to play in your zone of genius, there's no sense in you trying to do and be everything to everybody. Like for me, I don't touch exit stuff. So like, for example, like if we were, to JV on something in joint venture, I would take people up to a certain point, but then I'd be like, look, at some point you're going to want to get out of this business. Regina, I would love to make an introduction. All of a sudden we now have this JV kind of concept. And I'm more than happy to share somebody with someone that I know is a trusted source. And then, we just do a 180 on that one. So like this lady that I'm working with, I was able to help her, achieve to launch her online event, which went phenomenal. And then turn around. She winds up being my coach on a number of other things. So now we have this mutually beneficial relationship. She has audiences that she knows wants to have live events. And in turn, I'm more than happy to have a percentage that goes back to her, and vice versa, where I can say, hey, you need coaching or whatever that's going to be. I would love to make an intro. So now you kind of have this ecosystem of people that are more than happy in a state of abundance to share, hey, I want to make an intro for you. Awesome. They worked with you. Perfect. And I think you're together, you're able to serve at a higher level.
Yes.
And what do they say? A rising tide lifts all ships. So it winds up being a win-win-win across the board. And once you've done that with one person and it works beautifully, then being able to open up those same style relationships with other individuals, maybe with different areas of specialty. Like now, knowing that you do exit stuff, awesome. Like that, I don't know anyone else that does that. Now I have one guy that's great at courses. I have one person that's great on speaking from the stage. I have one person that, will help you get your coaching business to like 6 figures in 6 months. So like there's a whole bunch of different people. And I think it literally becomes like tools on your tool belt that at any time you can pull it up and say, okay, I can help you help serve you at this level by making an introduction. Their name is XYZ. Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. And by the way, my brain's already working on our first joint venture. Absolutely. So there was one other term that you used that I wanted to explore a little bit, because I think people don't necessarily see it as collaboration, but that was coaching, was a term that you used in your opening comments. So how can we help people to see that coaching itself and having a coach and working in that arena can actually be a form of collaboration?
Yeah, I think, collaboration, I think it can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people, just depending on the context and how we use it, right? So think about, I think, collaborating with your higher self. And so I'm going to keep going back to this book just because I happen to be in the middle of reading it and I think it's fantastic. But one of the things they talk about is, okay, how would the version of the person you like to be talk to the person that you are right now? And if we look at collaboration as like just communication between two individuals, trying to, benefit one another. So let's talk about internal collaboration. How am I, because everything, like just anyone that's gone through like even just standard life coaching school, they all talk, a lot of it's the same concept. So our thoughts lead to our emotions, which lead to our actions, so on and so forth. So if I'm having this internal collaboration with my thoughts are saying a certain thing, which is making me feel a certain way and I'm taking certain actions, well, if my collaboration inside is not succinct with the direction I want to go, or something's not happening, then externally, doesn't it make sense, because we can't see the picture when we're inside it, doesn't it make sense to bring somebody else in and invest in ourselves so our internal collaboration makes sense and everything's in harmony? Yeah. And even if you look at the people that are the best of the best, this was a huge takeaway. There was a speaker on stage at this last Funnel Hacking Live I went to. And he said, do you guys know what the biggest difference is between somebody who's a billionaire and somebody who's not? And everyone had good guesses. What would you say the biggest difference is? Like the number one key trait for somebody who's a billionaire versus somebody who's not.
Gosh, there's so many. The
I
one
know.
that's sticking out in my mind at the moment is perseverance, but I'm sure there's other things that are equally, if not more important. But
Yeah,
yes,
and
what was
that
it?
was certainly one of them. So he said they're coachable,
Ah, yeah,
that they're coachable. And what was
yeah,
really interesting was he backed it up. He's like, guys, look at all these people that are speaking from the stage. Look at the ones that are the most successful. When they
right.
are not on stage, they're typically in front and they are taking notes voraciously.
Learning. Yes,
They're always learning, and it doesn't. Repetition is the mother of all
right,
skill, right? So
right.
even if I know that I know that I know something, like one of the things that I love to do at any event is I will take notes for days, because the more I see that, the more I hammer it in, the more I'm going to remember it. And I even love sharing my notes with others, and they're like, oh my God, like I took 33 pages of notes at this last event I went to, but because
Yeah,
if I want to collaborate with myself internally and be at the highest level, well, I want to model the guys that are doing what I
yes,
want to do. So if I want to
exactly.
be a Tony Robbins or a Grant Cardone or a Russell Brunson, and I want to speak from stage, each one of those guys, they will sit there and they'll take notes for days.
Right.
So, I think just being able to kind of model that and then bring that into your internal world. So, the way that you're talking to yourself,
Yes.
it's such a head game, such a
Yeah.
head game.
That's beautifully said, sir. Beautifully said.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness, there's so many areas of collaboration that we don't think about on a daily basis,
Mm-hmm.
but it's such a game changer, isn't it?
It is. And even so, in like the last interview, we were just talking about sometimes just to collaborate with somebody, just to make sure like you get in the right mindset for something, to like either make a decision or to change your direction. Um, you know, that can make all the difference in the world as to whether you choose to pursue something or you don't. Am I
Right.
collaborating with the right people? Can they help me get to where I need to be? How can I provide collaborative efforts to others? And
Right.
so, and I think here's another one you can do too. So by collaborating with other people and building up this relationship capital, I just did an interview on this the other day. They were talking about like just the networking piece. So like if you go to an event, how can you leverage these collaborations? How can you build and nurture these new relationships that you
Right.
otherwise may not have had? And I'll fast forward a little bit, but essentially, let's say there's, you go to a marketing conference or some type of conference for business entrepreneurs. A lot of times we can get in our head that, oh man, I can't go talk to that person. Like they're too big, or they're a speaker, or
Right.
who am I to talk to them? Or, they have so much confidence. I'm an introvert. So we say all these things when the truth is a lot of times, if you just walk up confidently, you smile and say, hey, my name is, great to meet you. That sometimes will, all guards can come down, and sometimes they're the most friendliest people in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
But then it comes down to, okay, well, what can I potentially offer them? Or how do I build this relationship? How do I leverage the fact that I'm now shaking this person's hand? And one of the easiest ways, and what I found just from, reading a number of books and having done it myself, if you can figure out what they want, because I think a lot of times, if you want to collaborate with somebody that's up here and you're down here, most people say, hey, can you help pull me up? And
Yes,
they ask and they
exactly.
want and they take, versus how can I give? How can I serve? How can I
Yeah.
get you to the next
Yeah.
level?
Yep.
And so if you have built up relationship capital, or if you have something in there, usually one of the things I love to do is be like, hey, so what are you focused on right now? Like, what is most important to you? And the second they tell you, I'll give you a prime example. One of the speakers at Funnel Hacking Live, I knew I wanted to interview him for my book. But
Right.
rather than just go up and say, hey, can I do this? I first said, hey, well, what are you looking for? He's like, well, I'm looking to connect with influencers, just because that's huge for me. Well, I had literally came from an event last week, and guess what I met?
Who did you meet?
A mega influencer whose girlfriend was also a mega influencer. Okay. So here's why I say that. Building that relationship capital, I now have somebody's contact that has my know, like, and trust, and I know he's looking to meet certain people.
Yeah.
So I think from the collaborative effort, if you're trying to meet this person up here and you understand what they have, even if you don't necessarily have that tool or that specific like resource or solution, you can always make an introduction and
Yeah,
allow them
exactly.
to collaborate.
Yes.
because now you become that linchpin, you become that caveat between where they're at and where they want to be. And now every time it comes back, oh, who introduced you? Oh, it was that guy over there. You should talk to him. He's cool. And now I think this whole thing winds up coming back full circle because you built that know, like, and trust. You've given before you've asked.
Exactly.
And then
so important.
And then at that point, you can come back after and be like, oh, by the way, I happen to be working on this. Would you have any interest? And because I've already given, now it just made it so much easier. And long story short, he did the book interview. It went really, really well.
Awesome.
And so now I just, got to follow up, make sure they're able to do that. But that, I think, is a more of a strategic collaboration that you can do to leverage and build those up.
You remind me, I received a text from someone, or a messenger message from someone the other day, and they were talking about, they were sharing with me 2 new things that they were launching. And I've always, as long as I've known this person, I've been supportive of what they're doing.
Right.
And I just wrote back, that's really exciting. How can I support you? And he came back with something like, wow, I don't get that question a lot. That's not what people say. And then, and then he told me how I could support him. But it was, we do have to give first. And we have to create those relationships and create that trust. And always be thinking of who can you introduce them to? How can you help them grow? How can you help them in some way?
And I'll be honest, I was guilty of this when I first started getting, like before all the mindset piece and before really understanding just how do we raise everybody up around us. I used to be jealous and I was bitter. Like I'd watch somebody else like do something really well and I'd make excuses like why I wasn't getting that, or well, they had this, they had that, and like I don't have access, so it's not fair. And I'd play my own like victim party. And then when you start to realize it's like, okay, that does absolutely nothing for you, that gets you no further, that doesn't raise the bar for anybody. And I switched that to, okay, I want every person around me to be as successful as possible. And instead of focusing on ourselves, like if I can take you and I can lift you up and I can lift you up and I can throw you up there, well, A, they don't forget who helped them to get there. And B, now that they're up there, most likely, what are they going to do? They're going to throw their hand down and say, hey, come here, I got you. And then probably raise you with them. So it's funny. I saw a meme the other day. It's like, even if your friend reaches the finish line first and they totally crush it, sit there and applaud and be happy for them.
Absolutely.
As opposed to like jealous. Because a lot of times, I think, especially in this whole world of social media, when we go to collaborate with people and we see somebody else that's totally crushing it, it can be very easy to reflect on the things that we don't have. Man, I wish I had that car. Man, I wish I had that new client. Man, I wish I had that new house. Man, I wish I had, and like the list goes on and on and on. So I think sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to say, we're intimately aware of our own shortcomings and our own lacks. And we see other people's, what gets out on social media is their best. And we compare their best to our worst. And you're always going to lose in that game. I have 2 things that came out of what you were just saying for me. One is that law of reciprocity where they're lifting you up after you've helped them. And the other is just always looking for the win-win-win. How do I make this a win for you, a win for me, and a win for our clients, or a win for our team, or a win for whoever? That it needs to be at least that 3-way win, and not looking, as you say, for, being happy even for someone else's success, right? Being happy for someone else's.
Yeah, and even the strategy behind that, like a lot of times, and I'll just say from a financial standpoint. So if you're in this collaborative effort and you're trying to figure out numbers, like what makes sense, what does not. I think a lot of people that I've seen are entrepreneurs. They try and nickel and dime other people for their own benefit, and they say, "Hey, great, go do this, go do the work, and I'll give you 3%," or like whatever. Like they name some like lowball percentage, thinking of themselves first versus, hey. How can I give you, as much as possibly feasible where you're excited to do it? I'll now have had a new client with money that wouldn't have even happened had you not made an introduction.
Exactly.
It's like, this is the one thing my mom always told me, and she's done very well for herself. She's like, you cannot get greedy. So if you're going to go into this, like you said, that win-win-win, how can I support you? Thank you so much. A lot of appreciation, because like you said, that comes full back around. And even though it might be a little bit less in the beginning,
Right.
that compound effect over time adds up
Yeah,
really fast.
it does. And that's not to say, folks, that you don't make money in your business. You need to, or you don't have a business. You've got, you have to have a
Hmm.
plan for making money, but you also have to give and give first. It's one of Jay Fizet's things is joint ventures is a game of I'll go first, meaning I will support you first.
Hmm.
Um, and then again, that law of reciprocity kicks in, and they want to help you. You've helped them, they want to help you, and in the process of helping them, you've helped you
Hmm.
yourself.
Actually, and so one thing, because I've been dying to do this for a while, and I think when entrepreneurs get up and running, it's an important thing to do. Trying to figure out how can you give, or how can you tithe, or how can you give back to the community or a certain cause or whatever. I came across a link that actually my coach had shared with me. It's called B1G1, and it's
Okay.
a really cool concept. So essentially, they have all these collaborative efforts across the globe. Europe,
Right.
India, Asia, like you name it. And the idea is that you basically invest to become part of this as a business owner, just based on whatever your level is at. So now you're plugged into the community. And the idea is that every time you have a certain transaction in your business, you can go as in depth as you want. You can make it as minuscule as you want. So let's just say, for example, every time I close a client, what they're going to do is I can choose 1 to 100 things that I want to collaborate or charitably give to. So let's just say, for example, I could, every time I work with a client, I was playing around with the campaigns this morning. Every time a client comes in, they say, Brendan, I want to work with you. I can have 365 days, have education for kids. I could feed them and I can clothe them and I can give them good water.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that can be as in depth as that. It could be every time that we print an invoice, like one kid gets shelter for a night, like something along those
Right.
lines. So if you're talking about collaboration, sometimes it's not just you and a strategic partner. Sometimes it's you and people that are playing on a whole bigger level.
Yeah.
So your
Exactly.
impact has that ripple effect.
Yeah.
So anyways, that was something that cool that we were, looking to implement ASAP, because, you look at the different stages of business, and a lot of times it's first just more that survival mode. How do I figure this out? Then all of a sudden you've got some traction, things are going well. And then eventually you get to that point where, okay, how can I give as much as I possibly
Yeah.
can? And so I think, sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
So you being the exit strategist, always, talking, okay, well, let's think with that end in mind. Like, I want to figure out what does that giving look like, so I can already be a couple steps ahead. And when you look at the most successful businesses, those are the ones that not only that make the most, but those are also the ones that give the most. And I think if you can start implementing those pieces right now and be very diligent about it. And also, I'm going to go right back to the book. He said, there was a pastor, and this pastor was tithing a certain percentage, but as opposed to doing 10% of what he was making, he was tithing 10% of a year of what he desired to make. And he put himself in this mind frame of like, okay, I know I will make this, so I'm going to give this away now. So from, I think, an internal collaboration, he had that. Externally, from a collaboration, it forced him to make those connections that would allow him to get to that point. And 1 year later, he was making that exact amount of income that he claimed.
Nice.
So I think speaking it out there and being very intentional,
yes,
a lot of those collaborations wind up presenting themselves because your brain is actively looking for them.
Absolutely. Yeah. You kick in that reticular activating system. And I was in a class years ago with John Assaraf, and I made the comment about what you think about, you bring about. And of course, for me, the implication is, yes, there's work behind it. But John says, no, what you think about, you bring about with the work, with doing the work. You don't think it into existence. However, getting your mind wrapped around where you want to go, and then that reticular activating system kicks in and helps you create that. Awesome.
Yeah, and I think it also gives you, and just what we talked about earlier, right? It gives you clarity on the direction that you want to head.
Yeah.
And this is, I saw, unfortunately, I see a lot of people do this. Like, for example, they'll go to a networking event. They have this potential to make phenomenal relationships and collaborate with some of the most amazing people in the same industry that could take them miles ahead of where they're at. But because they don't have the clarity and they don't know where they want to go, they don't know how to foster that relationship.
Right.
and they don't know how to provide and how to support. So out of everything, and even just the couple times that you and I have now been, having interviews, we keep coming back to the same thing. You have to be clear on what it is you want.
Yep.
Because if you're not, then you're going to be ruled by somebody else's clarity, and things will just fall by the wayside and you lose opportunities.
Yeah, it is. It's a biggie. It's absolutely a biggie.
Mm-hmm.
This has been great, Brendan. We could go on for a while, but oh my goodness. I hope you've gotten a lot of really good nuggets out of this today, folks. This man knows what he's talking about in collaborations, and I'm really grateful to have you on the show today, Brendan.
Hey, my pleasure. And, hopefully, guys, if you're watching this, if there was a couple things I spoke to you, implement them. Go back and just see what your collaborations look like and hit the ground running.
Yeah. Any additional wrap-up comments that you'd like to make about collaborating? You just kind of did there, but anything else that you would like to add to that?
Yeah, I say, guys, if you haven't got a chance to collaborate with Regina, sometimes like the best things just come from a conversation. Like some of the best collaborations I've ever had was, hey, I would love to just learn more about you and what you've got going.
Yes.
So maybe, challenge yourself to do that today. Who can you reach out to, and who can you actually just genuinely ask how you can support them, and just watch how that blossoms.
Yeah. Don't come into it with a with them attitude, but what's in it for them, not what's in it for me.
100%.
Absolutely. Brendan, would you share your contact information with folks? So
yeah.
If they'd like to reach out to you, how can they do that?
Yeah. Do you want me to put it in the show notes, or my name's like super long?
Well, is the easiest way like on LinkedIn or?
Well, it'd probably be the simplest way. So can I just give the website? Does that work?
Sure.
So challengelaunchpad.com.
In fact, let's just put a banner up here and people can see it.
There we go.
Challengelaunchpad.com.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Easiest way to connect.
There we go.
Perfect.
There we go. We've got it.
Well, 2 collaborations. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. I'm looking forward to seeing all the ways that you and I are going to collaborate, and the people that we know that we can bring together as well. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Sweet.
You have an amazing day, sir. And folks, you come back and join us as soon as you can here on Collaboration Conversations. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Yes.